couple days ago, I made a video on how having high standards attracts the right kind of woman for your life and repels the wrong one. And so today I wanted to expand a little bit more on this topic and go over how to spot a supportive, more feminine, more traditional woman compared to somebody that is very self-centered and doesn't actually care about you and only cares about themselves. So this is kind of going to be tied to, I'm going to talk little bit about my own personal experiences and also talk to you about like what is the number one thing that is going to allow you to spot the difference between these two types of people, and then you can decide for yourself what kind of person you want. Do you want to trade off the traditional, more supportive role for somebody that is extremely attractive, like 10 out of 10, or do you want somebody more traditional but you wouldn't necessarily mind if they're not necessarily a 10 out of 10 is what I mean. So you might have heard multiple times across your life multiple people that say that the more beautiful the woman, the crazier she is. And usually she has one of three things. She's either pretty, crazy, but I don't remember exactly, but there's like three different angles or whatever. Let me look it up 1 second. Just pull that up on the laptop right here. So basically it is, just to make sure that I get this correctly for you, she's either a freak in the sheets and a good friend, or she's a good friend and she's gonna be like a forever type of partner, or she's a freak and she's gonna be a forever type partner. So technically she's either crazy and she's a good companion to have, or she's a good companion to have and she wants to stay like long term with you, or she's crazy and she wants to stay long term with you. So these are like the three types of women. So it's either good sexual partner and good sexual partner and supportive, or it's good, like very supportive and wife material, or it's good sexual partner and good wife material. But it can't be all three at the same time, or it's very extremely rare to have all three at the same time. And so how do you spot the difference between a good supportive woman that is wife material at the end of the day, and how do you spot the difference between that and somebody that is completely and utterly self-centered and doesn't really care about anybody else other than themselves? So within the first 2 weeks of your relationship with a woman, you are going to spot a few different things. Now, from my own personal experiences, what I've noticed is that usually somebody that is way more self-centered is always going to think about themselves in terms of they don't really know what they want. So like when you ask them like, what do you see yourself as in like 5 years or like 10 years? What do you see your life as? What kind of lifestyle do you want? What kind of things do you have? What kind of relationships do you have? And if she responds with, I'm not really sure, then that means she just wants more. She wants more things, more stuff, more, like a better car, better man, more money, more this, because she doesn't know what she wants. And that basically means, if you translate it from womanese to human, to English, it basically means I just want more stuff. I don't know when I'll be satisfied. I just want more stuff. It's like a black hole, and you can never satisfy these women. All right. So you need to be very careful about these people, because they will always seek out getting more things. I saw this video recently of this woman with her husband, and he made a surprise for her, and he basically bought her a car. I think she was asking him like, it would be really great if we could get a Cadillac SUV so that we could fit all the kids in there and da-da-da. And so he bought a Jeep Wagoneer. And so it's basically the same car, it's just a different brand. And so he showed her the car, and she said like, hey, I bought you like a Jeep, da da da. And so she looked at it, and she was like, but I asked you for a Cadillac. And she was so ungrateful. And ungratefulness is probably the most unattractive trait. Whenever you're looking for more of a traditional partner, she's not going to be ungrateful. She's going to understand that you're doing a lot for her. If you gift her a car, she's going to be like, oh my God, I love you so much, thank you, da da da. You know what I mean? That's like the number one symbol. Symbols are like, she's ungrateful, she's entitled, she thinks that you owe her everything. And that she wants to task you all the time. That's the second thing. She wants to task you all the time. She wants you to spend your time so that you're always getting better and improving yourself in order to satisfy her needs, or make more money for her, or make more money to buy her things, or get better and become more physically attractive so that way she can flaunt you around her friends. Or she wants to make sure that you are, because this is hypergamy. Most women are hypergamous. They're always looking for the best mate out there, the best partner out there. And so some women are more monogamous, and they'll stick with you like with their long-term partner for a longer time. But the more partners they have, the more likely they are to default to this hypergamous state of looking for the best partner out there. And this is the same thing with all animals, right? There's always the alpha. If you look at like gorillas or lions, there's always the alpha who gets like a bunch of the females, and then there's always the beta, more like softer, weaker animals who basically just get the leftovers. And so what ends up happening is most of the females give themselves to the alpha because he is the strongest, he is the most commanding, has the most leadership, he's the most inspiring, he's the best to be around. And then once he gets old, somebody else replaces him. This is like a cycle that goes on. If you look at nature documentaries of like animals in the wilderness, this is how they act. And so humans are one of the most, I guess, different in terms of this natural state, because we end up focusing more on, since there's so many of us on the planet, we end up focusing more on monogamy, and we have been focusing more on monogamy for a very long time. And so we understand that men want respect and women want love. And in that case, if you want the best of both worlds, well, you need to have this monogamous infrastructure, I guess. Because if we went back to animal kingdom, survival of the fittest, jungle warfare type relationships, well, the strongest, wealthiest, and most charismatic and imposing men would get all the women, and then all the people who would be deemed as unworthy would get none of them. Nobody. And in that case, our society would not progress, because we wouldn't be able to replicate as much as we have today, not be able to get to 9 billion people on this planet without monogamous relationships. So you have to think for yourself, okay, well, what kind of partner do I want? And how can I identify the values that they have so that I can go after them and be like, hey, I like you. You're nice to be around, and I would like for us to get to know each other, and then go from there. And so the problem is with a lot of different social constructs like feminism or like politics or like racism, whatever you might break down, basically it has made the dating market harder to approach for men and for women, because women have become more and more and more entitled, and men have become more and more distant because they're not attracted to masculine women. They're not attracted to women who want to be boss babes or make all the money or whatever the fuck. Because the problem is, and you could look at this study that has been done many times recently. Basically, when a man gets a lot of money and gets a lot of resources and stacks everything up and becomes more of an independent person, he says, I can now start my own family. Because he would rather sacrifice his own happiness to have a family and to invest into a family. And if you apply this same concept to a woman, basically what happens is, as soon as she gets a bunch of money, a bunch of resources, everything, what does she do? Oh, I don't need a man. I'm just gonna get a divorce. I'm just gonna whatever. She just does whatever she wants because she already has the box of resources ticked. And this is why men have always been the providers, because women like that. They're biologically programmed to like when somebody is better than them. Like when somebody is feminine, when a woman is feminine, she's always going to want to follow somebody better than her. She's going to make that very simple. And same goes for the opposite. If somebody's more masculine, she or he will want to become more of a leader. He will want to become more aggressive and outgoing and get more things, and get more resources, and do this and reproduce more and do this. Masculinity is the energy to do stuff. Femininity is the energy to support the doers. So you have to think for yourself, okay, well, am I more of a masculine person or a feminine person? And in that case, what do I want to be? Okay, well, if I'm a man, most chances are I want to become more masculine so that way I can find a feminine woman who can balance the scales in the relationship. So that way I'm the masculine, she's the feminine, and then we can meet together in the same environment, in the same spot. And she can be my 50% and I can be her 50%. Or 100-100, if you know what I mean. So how do you spot a traditional feminine woman? Well, number one thing I talked about in this video is whenever you ask a woman, what do you see yourself as? What are your goals? What does your life look like in 5 to 10 years? Well, I said if she's entitled and she's extremely selfish and she's actually a black hole, what she's gonna say is, I don't know. But the opposite, a more feminine, traditional, structured woman, she's going to say, I see myself like taking care of my home and making a home really nice and have a bunch of kids and maybe like I have like a dog and like I just want to stay at home and take care of everything, you know, like maybe I'll have a husband and I'll be able to take care of him. I'll be able to just cook food and try out some new recipes, and I'll be able to give him a good meal at the end of the day once he comes back from work, and I'll be able to decorate the house so well, and I'll be able to just like all of these very feminine things, right? And she has a very good picture in her mind of what her life will be like. And so she doesn't need more things. A very feminine and traditional woman will not push you to do more in order to satisfy her own selfish cravings. She will understand that you are a human. You are a whole human being. And she is a whole human being as well. And she will do her best to support you and knows that you need to do your best to support her. And if you don't, then she'll tell you that, hey, I think you're not doing enough. You're not respecting enough of me. You're not, what, do you not love me? Like, this is what she'll say. And so you have to think for yourself, okay, how do I find these women? Well, obviously, these types of women have been part of more traditional environments. So that could be like a religious environment, that could be a more traditional environment, more focused on family. She would most likely resemble a very large list of things that are more traditional. And so I made a list, and let me just pull it up for a second. All right. Well, video ended, so I'm just gonna resume the recording here. So what I was saying is I've got a list of things that I might share with you guys in the description, actually, just so that you guys kind of figure out for yourselves, okay, what does and you could probably ask yourself this question: what does a feminine woman, a traditional woman, act like? What does she want? What does she do? How does she behave around other people? What does she, in terms of activities, in terms of hobbies, what does she do on a day-to-day basis? What kind of people does she talk to? Is she around party goers and people who are like very promiscuous and they go to the club and party all the time and to the bar? Or does she hang around family and friends? Does she go to church? Does she hang around the library? Go to coffee shops? Just what does she do? Does she work a low-key job? Does she live with her family? What does she do on a day-to-day basis? You need to ask yourself this question so that way you can understand, okay, if I live in, I don't know, East Tennessee, where am I going to have to go? What environment am I going to have to put myself in order to find these more feminine traditional women? If I live in New York, if I live in Texas, if I live in Auckland, New Zealand, if I live in Christchurch, New Zealand, if I live in Australia, Sydney, if I live in whatever the place you might be in. And then you have to think for yourself, okay, well, how do I become the kind of man a more feminine and traditional woman wants to be around? And then once you've mapped out the answer, you already know what to do. You already know what kind of man you need to become. Okay. In that case, I need to be the provider of the household, so that way she can fully go into her feminine. And it might not actually start like that. The relationship might not actually start like that. Most women have a job today, right? And you might start the relationship with 50-50. You might pay 50% of the bills, she might pay the other 50%. But then it's your duty as a man, if you actually want this more traditional feminine woman, to make sure you take care of her. Not necessarily in you buy her Gucci bags or whatever the fuck all the time. Instead, what you need to do is you need to provide her the lifestyle that will allow her to go into her feminine. And if she doesn't, then she's not the right person for you. Because if you want a traditional more family orientated woman, you need to be aware not only of who she was before, but who she is today. Because all women are very emotional. So she might not give you a straight answer. But what you need to think about is her decisions of the past have influenced the person she is today. So if she used to be a very heavy party goer and all this sort of stuff, she's never going to change. She's never going to be different. She's always going to be that person. I heard this recently. I'm not going to talk too much about it, but I heard that this guy was talking about how the woman's brain works. And so basically there are two people in it. There is the hoe, so the 304, the promiscuous party goer that wants to sleep around with as many men as she wants or whatever, because it makes her feel safe. And the second one is the wife. And so the wife, what she wants to do is she wants to settle down with one person. And so these two women are in her brain constantly, like on a 24/7 basis, and she chooses which one she goes for. And then when you talk to her, she's going to pick one of the two options. And if she picks wife and you say, oh, so what's your body count? And she's like, what? Why is he asking for my body count? That's the other woman. It's not me. I'm the wife. I'm not the hoe. And so she really thinks like this. So you need to be careful. You need to find a woman that always chooses the wife and never chooses the hoe ever. Like ever. And to do this is exactly what I just mentioned over the course of this video. So you need to find the good environment where she's going to be a part of. That might be hanging around people that are already married, that have friends, that have family members, that have maybe like sisters, sisters, brothers, cousins, whatever it may be, that are part of an environment that is more traditional. The other thing is, you want to become the kind of person who can provide for this kind of person, this kind of woman who, that way, if you can provide for her lifestyle and you can pay all her bills, and she goes 100% into her femininity, into her feminine aura, then in her energy, she can then support you fully. Because if you are 100% masculine and she's 100% feminine, then in that case, she doesn't want to work. She wants to take care of the home, all right? So that way, she can do all the stuff you don't want to do, and you do all the stuff she doesn't want to do because she doesn't want to work a job, all right? So, in that case, very simple. Environment to find where she is, and then becoming the kind of person she wants to be with. Those are the two things that you need to do if you actually want to find a more supportive woman. Now, the next step would be looking at, when you're dating someone, within like the first, I guess, 2 weeks of dating them, how do you spot exactly what kind of person they are? Well, it's all within what I just said across this video. It is when you ask them who they want to be, who they see themselves in 5 years or 10 years. What kind of goals do they have? Is it extremely selfish? Is it, I don't fucking know what I want? Or is it extremely house supportive orientated? Find that out and you'll figure it out for yourself. And with that said, I appreciate every single one of you guys watching until the end of the video. And as per usual, like, comment, subscribe. If you want more advice and more tips on this kind of stuff, just feel free to ask in the comments. If you have a certain topic that you would like me to talk about, feel free to do so in the comments. And I really appreciate every single one of you guys if you've watched until the end of the video. As per usual, it's a beautiful day. It's a bit chilly today, but we're still gonna get some work done. So let's get back to work, and I will see you tomorrow. Have a great day.